Welcome, everyone. So, do we have recognitions tonight?
We do. We have a special recognition
Okay.
tonight. Somebody who really doesn't like attention, so this will be painful for her. But she's worked with us the whole way. So tonight, I'm really excited to bring before the board Christina Nordell. If you could stand, please. I know. Christina is our 2020-21 Simsbury Teacher of the Year. And what was really special about the beginning of this year is we were unable to bring everybody together for the kind of large-scale convocation that we've done in the past, but we actually did 7 separate ones at each school site. And Christina kicked things off eloquently at Henry James with an incredible message. Christina is a special education teacher for us. She's been with us for 18 years. Nobody works harder. I've always said that about Christina. She's incredibly committed. Nobody's more passionate, and nobody is a more effective communicator than she is. I had the great fortune of working with Christina years ago when I was the principal of Squadron Line School, and Christina was the lead teacher in the Ready, Set, Go program. So, I had an opportunity to speak to the faculty and welcome them, and then Christina stole the show. Right?
Yes,
we were there.
She rightfully did,
But
yes.
there's just a piece of the message that I wanted to share with the board and the public tonight that Christina talked about. She gave 4 bullets that she wanted to have everybody consider and think through. And the first one was everyone needs someone. The second was check your ego at the door. The third was always take time to pause and to observe what a student is communicating through their behavior. And then the last one was every single student has something to contribute. Take the time to find it. She had a wonderful slideshow up behind her. She told stories about students and what she's learned from them. So I couldn't be more happy for you. You're a great representative for our faculty. And I know she wasn't really happy with me because the deal was this. You only have to do the speech live once. But it was so good, we were going to the high school to the next day, so we got to do it again, Christina. She did, but was none too pleased, and we taped the remainder. So I want to thank you for being such a good sport, and for coming out tonight, and we're so very proud of you, so congratulations.
Thank you. I'm totally humbled and honored for this, and thanks for doing all that for me.
I talked so you don't have to.
I love it. But thank you all, because teaching really requires a team, and without having such a supportive board of ed and the community around us, I don't think we would be able to do what we do every day. So thank you guys for all being a part of Team Simsbury.
Thank you, Christina.
And if anyone is interested, I do have the video, if you would like me to forward it to you so you
I
can
would
see
strongly
Christina's
recommend
comments.
that you all watch it.
Happy to do that.
It's a wonderful speech, and I was lucky to hear it twice. And Christina, you do us proud, truly, and it was such a great message. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. Okay, we are on to public audience. So we would ask that you, Katie, is there a particular place from their seats? What do we want to do? Okay. Do you have your phone? Can you do 3 minutes for me? Because, oh, I just found my phone. Right. You're queued up? Okay. So it's 3 minutes. State your name and your address, and please step to the microphone if you have something you'd like to share with us tonight.
Microphone too, whichever you prefer.
Can that move?
Yeah, it's
Yep.
wireless, so.
Oh,
Everything
everything's wild. Even I had a 4 or 5 minute. I'll sit down.
There you go.
Dwayne Royce has been here before for the pickleball. I want to thank you again for the opportunity for public input. 2018, the Board of Education did put pickleball lines on the Henry James School, and us seniors have been using them during the summer every day, 9 to 11. And during school year, we use it 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. 2 hours of friendly cardio exercise is good for all of our pickleball. We enjoy the social and exercise.
He's came back from a search.
Just a side, the reason I thought, I'm here tonight, the libraries used to be a place just for your books and just to be quiet. Now the library is a place to get teachers' computers, 3D printed and so on. You can print, take tools out, 3D tools. Many progressive activities going on in school, in the library. And this Simsbury school also, also does a lot of progressive activities of GED, ESOL, state mandated programs, and senior citizen program that is, I guess this year, maybe before. Schools are progressive, involved with senior citizen involvement. But now the seniors, we play pickleball all during the summer and into the fall. Last year we played right up until the snow fell up at the farms, Simsbury Farms. Just for information, last week our pickleball originated. Phil Cochran, who has been here previously with me in 2018, Phil Cochran, he turns 90. He turned 90 last Tuesday. So we had the reporter from the Valley Life come and take pictures and see what was going on up at the Henry James and how active we were, and of course spent a lot of time talking to Phil and his wife Charlotte, who also plays. So the reason to finish up here, the reason I'm here is to ask that the request of the high school athletic director and the Henry James physical education wellness director might schedule a meeting with us for pickleball, to understand when the gyms might be available for the 5 winter months when we cannot play pickleball outside. We do believe our school gyms can provide the community with what Simsbury is missing. We're missing a community center. And I talked to you tonight for myself. The email, I'm just the email leader for the group. We have 3 other people here, but there's at least a dozen pickleball players. And the senior citizen coordinator, Kathleen Masco, supports us, as does Diana Yeasley, who's the Aging and Disability Commissioner.
So I believe, I understand that you've gone through the application process through Parks and Rec, is that correct?
We've, yes.
To get gym space?
Yeah, okay.
So that's a process we need to follow through, because all groups kind of come to us through Parks and Rec in how they use it. So we're gonna follow through on that process, and if there's an issue there, we'll try to work with you as best we can.
'Cause I think we thought we had some space at the elementary schools, but it's not gonna work for you, right? We just got word back on that.
We've been working with Tom, the
Yep.
2 schools
Yep.
we visited, and they're not gonna work.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
So we'll take a look and we'll circle back.
And, okay,
All right? Yep,
All right.
you got it.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yeah, excuse me. Give it back to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak tonight? Okay. So now we are on to committee reports and BOE communications. So I want to welcome our student rep, Olivia Antidormi. Did I say that correctly? Okay. And Alex Picoult, right? Pico, sorry. See, that's the one I mess up, but I think I know. If you guys want to just introduce yourselves, give us a little bit of who you are for a minute, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, so my name's Olivia Antidormi. I've been living in Simsbury for 6 years. I'm a senior at Simsbury High School, and I'm interested in going into education and college.
Wonderful. Well, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm Alex. I'm also a senior. I've been in Simsbury Public Schools my whole life, and so I'm excited to work on the board and see how it all works. And I'm hoping to study ecology in school.
Terrific. Thank you for joining us tonight. Mr. Tyndall, you have anything for us?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Sharon?
Nope.
Okay. Brian?
Not tonight.
Lyd?
Yeah, actually, just briefly, a couple things. First of all, our first CREC council meeting will be tomorrow for the start of the year. We recently had the fall staff, and Sarah was also present from CREC, and so it was like our convocation, and it was held at the Learning Corridor, and most, of course, were all back in their classrooms or their school buildings while we had the speeches and things from the stage. And one of the nice notes that happened during the summer with CREC was that we were able to pass out, do you know how many backpacks, Sarah, were passed out?
Probably 1,500 or so.
1,500 backpacks to students, not only CREC students, but also Hartford Public School students. And I missed it this year, but it's always a great event. And it's a real community event for students and for families and for the CREC staff. On the CABE side, we had our first Board of Directors meeting last week, and Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker came and spoke with us through Zoom, but we had our meeting in person, and she talked about the opening of schools and about the assessment results, and she commended superintendents and all the board members around the state on the academic recovery and acceleration, and how we keep our retention of high-quality teachers. So it was a very good in-depth discussion with her and several of the state board members that were there also with us, and to talk about the state and what's going on in the education and how it affects, we board members with elections coming up and a lot of issues that are before the table, before us, before communities and things. And the other piece, which you'll be happy to know, that Patrice McCarthy was there, and the legislature is kind of quiet at this time. So she does not think that anything is going to happen. They're not going to be back in session anytime soon. But some of the commissions are still on hold, and some of the commissions are the SEL and the remote learning, and now there's going to be a commission for bus driver shortage. So that's what's going on that front. So we'll see what happens after that. And on the SBA front, I'm heading off tomorrow for a conference for Council of Urban Boards of Education. It is the annual conference, and even though I do not represent an urban district, but I do represent CABE and CREC, and this is a great opportunity for the urban boards of ed members and superintendents and district staff to be there, and we've got great speakers, great workshops, and things going on. And the last thing I just want to put in a plug for, Leadership Greater Hartford is offering a conversation about race and place called the Two Connecticut's, and it's also in conjunction with Connecticut Mirror, University of Hartford, and Third Age Initiative. And the first one will be A House Divided on September 22nd. This one will be virtual. Some of the others will be education will be in November, and housing is in October, and some will be virtual, some will be in person. So if you have an opportunity to take a look at that, it should be very interesting. The panelists and the speakers that will be there are going to be talking about what is going on in Connecticut at this time. So that's where we are with that.
It's a shame you're not busy.
Yeah, I know.
Could you share that link with us? so
Yes,
that-
I will, because
so
I just got this today, so
really
I just will
interesting
send
to-
this off
to hear some of that.
those that are interested, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Jen? Mr. Nothing? Ms. Lemke?
I'll report later.
I'm going to report later too, but I want to piggyback on Lydia's comment about bus driver shortages. Another day doesn't go by when you don't find a story about a district that's struggling to get its bus driver shortage filled. And I just wanted to take a brief moment tonight to thank our partners at Salters Express who have done tremendous work. We did have our own difficulties last winter, mostly due to quarantines that caused us to have some bus routes that got canceled last year. But we are fully staffed. JR and Mark Salter, as the owners, work incredibly hard, and I have learned it's a tough small business to own. But we are very well taken care of with our local partners at Salters Express. We still have some work to do to get everything running on time still, but we do have all of our routes, both bus and van, covered. And I don't talk to very many other people who have that situation right now. So thank you to our partners at Salters Express.
What do they have to do when they cancel routes?
They consolidate, then sometimes cancel. It's really been a significant issue in some districts that are with larger companies right now.
So during our quarantine situation last winter, we would shut down a route for 3 days and then have another one. So our parents worked with us, but it's a burden.
Sure.
And once we got February was a difficult time. Once we got into March and vaccines started rolling out, we were back on track. So.
Jason. Okay.
I have one introduction in the crowd. We have Sarah Voca is here. Sarah is the Assistant Superintendent on the operations side for CREC, and she is working with me closely this year as an intern. She's in her own 9-3 program. So we're excited to have Sarah here, and we have a couple other interns working as well that we'll see throughout the year. So a great two-way relationship. So welcome, Sarah. The other piece I wanted to share, I have a T-shirt for every member of the board tonight. So this was part of our kickoff celebration. We talked a lot about team, talked a lot about the challenges that we've been through and pulling together and moving forward to serve our community. So it's a little Simsbury swag, right? We got Team Simsbury, all kids, all staff, all ways, and I think it's very representative of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So I wanted to get you your shirt. We had the whole faculty wear these on Friday. Pretty cool.
I guess we're gonna have to have a
So-
Board of Ed swag night, T-shirt night.
Got it.
We'll have to pick a meeting and do a T-shirt night.
So it's good to be back. It's good to see the students back in the building with positive energy. So
Yes, indeed. So, all right, so now we are on to recommended actions. Approval of the minutes of our August 24th special meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to accept these.
And a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I'll abstain.
Personnel.
So a long personnel exhibit tonight, as it typically is at the start of the school year. It's the first two sections that need your action. And we begin with the acceptance of some resignations that came in over the summer. The first three are all high school positions. Actually, Laura Tinarella, who was a world language teacher, had a split schedule between the middle school and the high school. Jane Palmer at Simsbury High School in wellness, and Dan Bergman in special ed. I would characterize all three of these as folks who got jobs in their own community where they live. This is a fairly unusual circumstance for us to see mid-career folks leave Simsbury, but these were sort of lifestyle choices to literally be teaching around the corner from where they live. And each of those three individuals made that choice in three different school districts in Connecticut. Dana Pescatello has been a teacher with us at Henry James for the last several years, an English teacher. A situation where sort of a couple of other generations of her extended family to take care of, and she decided that it was time for her to spend more time with family, so she took her retirement in August. And then Carly Hennigan, who had been with us for a few years, is a grade 4 teacher at Central School, took a position as a library media specialist in another district. So the motion is there for each of those resignations. If somebody could move that.
Move that the Board of Education accept the resignations of Laura Tinarella, Jane Palmer, and Daniel Bergman effective June 30th, 2021, and Dana Pescatello and Carly Hennigan effective August 5th, 2021.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your years of service to Simsbury.
Yeah. And only one retirement over the summer. The rest had come in before that. But Bernadette Sullivan, math teacher at the high school, who has, Bernadette came back into teaching after a long hiatus. She had taught earlier in her life up, I can't remember, it was northern New England. It was either Vermont or New Hampshire, but had a long career up there, then took time off to raise her family, was our math lab tutor for a couple of years, and then decided to get back into the classroom and gave us 12 more years there teaching math at Simsbury High School. And it was time for Bernadette. She told me her husband always used to be traveling, so she was teaching during the week, and now he doesn't travel anymore because of COVID. So they're taking their retirement, so congratulations to Bernadette.
Someone make that motion, please.
Sure. I'll move that the Board of Education accept the retirement of Bernadette Burns Sullivan effective June 30th, 2021.
In a second? I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you to Mrs. Sullivan, who taught a couple of my kids.
And then I'm going to have some comments later about our new teachers, but the reason the exhibit is long is because we have 30 new teachers that were appointed into the school district, so that's a higher number than usual. Usually I would characterize that we're in the neighborhood of 18 to 20, so this was definitely a higher number. A few more retirements at the spring that you will recall moving, and we added a number of positions late in the summer. So there were, by your bylaws, we do not have to approve these through a motion, but we wanted to put them into the exhibit, and you can see every school but Terriffill added at least one teacher, with the not surprising, quite a few at Central. That's a place where we, for a small school, we added a number of teachers at Central, and then Squadron Line had a number of special ed positions to fill, and of course at Simsbury High School we're always having some turnover on a very large faculty. So 30 in all. It was quite a crew, and I'll have a little bit more to say about their levels of experience and some of their preparations to teach when I do my school opening report. But no motion necessary here.
You had a busy summer.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of that. All right, so now we are on to your school opening report.
We are. So at the last meeting, we had a chance to do a little bit of enrollment, some of the things we would have done in this traditional first meeting. But we've put together a little background for you on some of the important things as we've rolled into the school year. And at our next meeting at Simsbury High School, we'll really start talking about kind of the goals and priorities and academic focuses. So it's a little bit of a pulled back report tonight, but it gives you an overview of the first couple days and some of the important info. So I know that Sue, Neil, and Jason each have a part of the report tonight.
Terrific. So I'll start, and as we know, the Board of Ed strategic plan began in 2019, and looking at 4 main goal areas, and looking at how do we come back after an unprecedented year of COVID and really prioritize the goals and objectives in that strategic plan that made sense, most importantly for kids. And so, again, you'll hear more about this from our teaching and learning team in the next 2 weeks. But there's 3 specific goals of focus for our teams this year. The first is around our student growth and success. Specifically looking at the vision of the graduate, we also have a capstone requirement in play this year, and really teasing out the particulars of that and updating the board about that progress. You've also heard us talk about the achievement gap prior, which by and large has been around our students with special needs versus their typical peers. But through our work with Equity Council and other groups, we're finding that there's other gaps as well, and we need to address those. And then the third, and this is a kind of a longer standing discrepancy, but our students aren't performing as well in math as they do in the areas of literacy. And we want to take a look at why is that district-wide, and start uncovering some better ways in which we get even greater results with our students. The second goal is around a caring and compassionate school climate. Certainly you know that the social emotional learning work is something that not only Simsbury but the entire state is particularly focusing on post-pandemic. So we will continue to highlight those practices K-12 and to determine how do we best support our students who are not yet meeting those levels of expectation, either academically, behaviorally, or social emotionally. So that is another area of focus. The third is around Premier Workforce, which is predominantly a shared goal between the Office of Teaching and Learning and Human Resources. But again, how do we leverage time that we have with teachers and with each other around concepts of professional development that support our areas of focus through our academics, through our behavior, and through our school climate and our district climate. Placing a premium on the high quality staff that, you know, Neil just spoke about as we welcome a new crew of educators to the Simsbury School District. So we'll tease this out a little bit more, but wanted to share with you that we really took some concerted time to look at our data, saying how does this line up with our strategic plan and what do we want to prioritize in the coming year. So to open this school year, we had a week that had a lot of professional development time. Certainly the first couple of days were full days, and then we had the early release time for students where staff could engage in some additional professional development time. And it was a great way for both students and staff to reacclimate themselves to the school year, reminding the board that we made that calendar decision because we had some students and even some staff who had not been in the physical building since March of 2020. So these are some of the areas that we spent that time on, very valued time, aligning with those priorities, reestablishing some of our social emotional learning updates as we greeted staff and students back to us here in the Simsbury Public Schools. We always have some units that we're looking at updating as far as our Connecticut state standards and how do we share those updates with our staff. We also took a little dig into some data, and I'm going to speak more about our student performance data in just a bit. And certainly some cautions with that data, but it provides us a good opportunity to see where kids were entering into the school year. And how does this lead into our educators' professional growth plans? What do we want to focus on through the strategic plan, through their own practice to get better at with and for kids every single day? So it was time very, very well spent. Over the course of this week, Neil and I actually had a professional growth and development committee meeting with a number of educators across the district, a regularly scheduled meeting, but they too send their thanks for the board's support for this time in professional development. So some student learning data. I'm going to give you some kind of broad aggregate information relative to our student performance. We did collect data. We administered some standardized tests. In our SBA testing, you notice I'm not calling it SBAC anymore. They dropped the C in that. It's a little awkward. Yes, SBA.
I was good.
Yeah. I think I even might have put SBAC in here, but they really did drop the C. Our next generation science standards testing, I'm going to share with you a little bit about that and about our SAT. So as a reminder, we didn't administer these tests in the spring of 2020 because we were right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's been a while. And these results were provided to us in a very different way this year as they have in the past. Because as we know, districts across the state, some were all in person, some were in a hybrid situation, and some were fully remote. So they spliced the data in that way. So you'll notice that some of the ways in which we've compared ourselves to other DIRGs and other districts around the state is a little bit more complicated this year, and we're still doing some of that analysis. But we want to be cautious about the weight we place in these results. It was a lot on everyone last year. But what these data points do provide is teachers and educators an opportunity to see where students are entering in to this school year. Where do we have to focus our teaching? Where might we have to do some reinforcement of knowledge and skills? So we're cautious, but great users of that information and of that data. Susan, you look like you're about to ask a question.
I was going to ask you a question. Is that, so I know not every grade takes them. Did we hold to the normal grades that take these
We did.
exams?
Yeah.
We did.
So it's 3, 5, 8?
No.
I'll go over all of that.
Okay.
So let me just start here.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. So the
There'll
smarter.
be more in the next presentation, a higher degree of data.
Okay.
This is kind of a broad
I
brush.
was just curious if
3
we
through 8.
expanded the testing. All right.
So
Thank you.
Smarter Balanced is given in grades 3 through 8. Okay, and so
I'm stuck in the math street. That's
Yeah.
how old I am.
I get it. Sometimes I go there too, Susan. So in grades 3 through 8, we often look at our performance relative to our demographic reference group, or DERG, and we're in DERG B. So in those districts that were most alike to us in learning models, there are 18 districts. If we look at the aggregate of grades 3 through 8, our literacy, or our ELA, we ranked number 2 out of those 18 districts, and in our math we ranked 6. So I did speak to our strategic plan, how we are prioritizing math. This is not just a discrepancy that we saw this year, it's been some years previous, and we need to take a deeper look and a deeper focus with the teaching and learning team and with our leaders and our teachers about what might be going on there.
So quick question.
Yes.
These are the results of students that took the test in person, correct?
Yes, mostly in person.
So, again, they've spliced it completely differently, so it's a hard way to kind of match up district to district, which is why we're not putting district names up there or looking
Okay.
at things.
So
Some districts sent all kids in, even if they were doing remote learning for the test.
I was going to say,
Others
so
did it
even like RDL kids, did they take the test?
They took the test, yep, and we're looking at those results.
But
I mean,
that's
actually, in
separate.
our district, it was there was not a significant achievement gap difference, but in the state, there was an enormous difference between those kids that took the test at home and took it in school.
Classroom.
So we're still kind of weaving our way through some of that
There's a
stuff.
lot
Did
of
we
different.
show, did we show that data?
We're
We
looking
did
at
not
it now,
show-
we don't have it in this report.
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh, Sharon, I thought you were asking if there was a discrepancy between our distance learners and the kids in person.
Well, that's where I was going. Did we show our distance learning and
Versus in person.
in person? Yes.
They're actually, they don't show the discrepancy to the degree that most of the other state does, quite honestly.
ours are pretty close.
Ours are pretty close.
It's not in this.
Okay.
It'll be in the next
We have to look at
one of this. Okay.
how to present it.
Yeah,
to us.
just, and I don't know if you can answer this since you said it's been sort of sliced and diced a little differently, but just that 6 ranking, is that consistent, up, down?
We're down a little bit. Just try, quite honestly, a smidge. And again, this is the aggregate of all those grades 3 through 8 pulled together. So we've had some really good performance in certain grades, and in other places, not as much. And again, these comparisons are not apples to apples the year before, so we're still trying to put our heads around it, quite honestly. What I will point out in grades 3 and grade 7, our ELA, we were ranked number 1 in literacy. So that's promising, and we're going to take a look at what does that mean? What are those practices that resulted in those outcomes? But that's Smarter Balance. So again, grades 3 through 8 in both literacy and math. Our science, next generation science standards, that's given in grades 5, 8, and 11. Okay, so that's consistent. So here in our DERG rank, again, 6th in grade 5, ranked 5th in grade 8, and ranked 2nd in grade 11. So again, much more analysis to do there, and I'm very cautious about these ranks because there's a lot of different variables this year that just haven't been in play in years past. And then finally, our SAT. So the SAT was saying that the data was, the specific data was embargoed until the end of September, although we actually received word from the College Board that we can get into those particulars. So we'll provide more of those to you at our next Board of Ed meeting on the 28th. But in English Language Arts, again, out of 14 schools, so you'll say, okay, Sue, why was it 18 before and 14 now? Again, it's that learning model, right? We compared ourselves to where we were, which predominantly was a hybrid model last year in our high school. So we were ranked number 3 out of 14 schools and 4 out of 14 schools in math.
So this is going to be a little bit of an ongoing challenge, because this year, now we've got everybody in the building, so to compare whatever scores we get for this year.
I think Sue mentioned it, you know, the best use of this data is for teachers to understand where kids are, get a relevant assessment
Yeah.
and move, you
Yeah.
know, and
That's how to
not
move forward.
get caught up in it, yeah.
You know, we have growth markers that's where this is going to be helpful for.
Right.
So where are students at now, and are students growing
Yeah.
in their learning over this course of this year?
Right.
But what about, the other question I would have is, what about the kids that were home? So what happened with
Tell
the-
me more about that,
Yep.
Sharon.
So this is just looking at kids that were distance learning and kids that were,
So this is a hybrid, because that was the majority of our students. So we need to go, I mean, that's a good question. We need to go back in. Ed Lyman's running some more data for us, because some of the different groups didn't have a big enough end number to really come up with the analysis on it yet. But we have all that data we can kind of flush out and see and compare. It was interesting overall at the elementary level that it was about 25-30% of our students at home performed pretty much the same as our students that were in school. That was very different than most districts. We still need to flesh out the secondary piece of it more. I couldn't speak off the cuff on what that looks like yet.
But what I do know is individual results are coming in, Sharon, that teachers are aware of what those results are, and again, using those as an entry point of where do we need to teach in now that we are fully back in person.
I
Yeah.
too. And maybe you'll talk about this, but my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that STAR math and STAR reading that we have done every year, and we did do last year as well, multiple times. And so do we ever take a look at the data that those provide? Almost, in my mind, that might be even a better look than these sort of.
We use it, that's a great point. We use it as a formative assessment, like along the way, how are students progressing? We know that very often we see correlations between STAR performance and then on some of these other measures. But the STAR gives us more of a diagnostic place in which to enter in our instruction. So for example, at the elementary schools, we're in the midst of collecting baselines right now on STAR. So we certainly have these ESPA results, but we also have kind of an updated version of the STAR that, again, provides more of a diagnostic look at where teachers can enter in relative to their instruction.
Utilized for intervention markers and everything else.
Absolutely. Great question, Jen.
We've been down in terms of like these rankings in math for a number of years, though. So, like, what have we been doing other than, like, I know we've invested in the coaches and tutors. What else are we doing? Because we also at the same time, I think, put in a new curriculum.
We did. So we are in our 4th full year of Math in Focus at the elementary level. And we are certainly looking with our coaches. They were not in play last year through all of this, and we made some prioritizations because we knew relative to the pandemic year that we couldn't do everything that we had done in particular in the years before. So looking at how we've prioritized units and are we getting those teaching points in right relative to these assessments as well. So that's why it's one of the areas of primary focus in our strategic plan, because we know that there has been a discrepancy between the performance of literacy and math for quite some time, and we have to dig a little bit deeper into why.
I mean, and also a few years in, we were just talking today, a couple grade levels, when we break it out by grade level, that had really good, solid performance. What can we learn from them in terms of alignment and practice that can be applied to some of the other grade levels? So definitely some bright spots when we pull out some of the other data for you.
For sure.
Okay, good.
So looking ahead, I'm going to have the entire teaching and learning team here on our next meeting on the 28th. So you'll have a more extensive report relative to the strategic plan and the prioritizations and what each director is doing to lead the work around those priorities, as well as an additional data analysis that we'll have for you relative to these measures of ESPA, see, I did it up there, I put an S back, ESPA, NGSS, SAT, and also some advanced placement data for you as well from the high school.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mine's a little bit of a potpourri of topics that we'll move through here, starting with, as we spoke about, our new teacher orientation, with a large sample of new teachers welcomed to the district. We worked out of Henry James' beautiful new media center, so that was a great large space to spread people out and get them excited about their introduction to Simsbury. We always bring in some folks who had been in their shoes 1 year ago, people who were new hires in the previous year, who come in and speak to the crew of teachers and answer all of their questions. That's always one we get great feedback about and one that we have continued. We then have a number of presentations. Dr. Bachelor, up here it's listed as an equity presentation. I would describe it as a presentation that was really about sort of some coaching about connecting with all students, and it was just really well done, really appreciated by our new teachers. Katie Krasula and Nancy Forsberg do a 2-hour session on the ins and outs of special education in the district, and then they also get a curriculum overview. In addition to that, they spend one of the mornings we farm them out to their own individual schools, and the principals take them for their building orientation. So it's a 3-day program. It's we do give them time to work at their own pace, setting up their rooms on the last day, unless you are a brand new teacher who needs to participate in the state's team program, which is mentoring for first and second year teachers, really. And there are some performance criteria within those first couple of years. And we do a morning of training for them because that's going to be a 2-year process for brand new teachers. And after its absence in 2020, we returned the famed historic and cultural tour of Simsbury on the bus. Dual tour guides this year to go on the Simsbury extravaganza. And what we used to do is hit all 7 schools and make our way back to the Board of Ed with the stop at J. Foster's. But now that would require going to Avon, which was just unacceptable. So final stop this year was, last school was Tooten Hills, around the corner from Tulmeadow, and our folks were able to enjoy. We arrived at the same exact time as a similarly large group from a nursing home.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, Tulmeadow.
So Tulmeadow had about 60 people there for ice cream. We backed off and let our senior friends go first, but we had a great
Did
day.
you jump behind the counter to scoop, Neil?
Yeah, no.
We actually got an extra scooper.
Yeah.
And I said, it's okay, we can share the extra scooper. All
So
right.
very high energy event, and it was a great way to kick things off. So this is a little bit of a way to show you sort of our hiring patterns a little bit, and you can see that the largest chunk of the pie chart here is, when we budget, we talk about hiring teachers for the most part not at the top of the scale, and this confirms that over half of our teachers are in that either no years of experience up to 5 years of experience. We do hire a few right out of college. I would say that a lot of them are in kind of the 2 or 3 years of experience is where folks get a couple of years in another community and then are apply to Simsbury. Just a smaller slice in that mid-career type of area, and then, you know, are we willing to hire at the top of the scale? So you can see about 25% of the teachers, I would describe those more in specialty, hard to hire areas, things like speech and language pathologists. And then a few of those this year were teachers that we had hired on one-year contracts due to COVID, who then performed excellently, and we wanted to offer a full-time contract too. So that's sort of the breakdown of our hiring practices for the year. And then where do they fall on the scale in terms of their degree preparation? And you can see the majority now, 50% are really with a master's degree is kind of the hiring sweet spot, if you will. I would say that more so than 15 years ago, more people are staying and getting a master's before they even start teaching. So some of those are actually our new hires, but it was a little less than a third that start with a bachelor's degree, and then you can see a few with advanced degrees that we hire. So a pretty good distribution, and I will also say that we did make some gains with adding teachers with diversity. We were able to add a few teachers who are Asian American, Hispanic, Black, and did well with our administrative hires to diversify our staff too. So pretty proud of the hire. And I'll add one more. In a more dominant female profession, we look to, we try to hire male teachers where we can too, in terms of trying to balance what we have. So pretty proud of like what we were able to accomplish in terms of rounding out the team, if you will. I put very little about enrollment in here because I did hit it 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to show you where we were. This is as of September 3rd, and the left-hand column is the one that is the current, so 4,041 students. We were actually a little higher than that when I showed this to you a few weeks ago, and I told you that I thought it would go up from there. But in addition to having very late move-ins, we had a very unusual thing happen, which is the first day of school came in Simsbury, and kids that we had on the rolls and we thought were coming, nurses and secretaries started calling, and I'm not talking lots, but Squadron Line alone had like 8 or 9 kids who had moved and nobody told us. And that doesn't happen to us. And I don't know how they enrolled in their next school, because I think other places are maybe getting a little lax in how they're letting kids in the door, because you should have gotten the records from the previous school. So we got surprised by some like first day withdrawals that, and some of them were to magnet schools, but so this number is now 4,041. I don't expect that to change much before October 1st. So when I give you the official enrollment report, we'll be right around that number. In terms of where the increase from last year, it's you can see where it's at 3960. Is that what that says? So we're up 81 from last year. Almost all of that you can see comes at the elementary level, and that the populations at Henry James and Simsbury High School are quite stable right now, and that's that's that quick look. In terms of the highlights, it's 4,041 is 21 over the Malone and McBroom projections. They had projected 4,020, so pretty accurate, but more variation at the individual schools. So above projections at Squadron Line and Terrafil, and then after the years that we had with more kids coming to Latimer than we expected, we had a downturn at Latimer. So again, these things are hard to predict year to year, but that'll be information we're going to need to feed back to our demographers to talk about. I said it was an increase of 81 students. Part of what I presented last time, when you talk about the classrooms that we added. We were able to subtract. It's a net of 4 classroom teachers that we added at the elementary level, but a decrease of 1 classroom teacher at the secondary level. So sort of after your budget, the post-budget impact that we're trying to cover with Amy Merriweather is really 3 teachers. But given the hiring levels that we did, we think we're going to be able to handle it in terms of the budget and be in the right ballpark for our personnel costs. So of course, I talked about last time, we thought that was what we did, even though we added teachers late, was a very responsive approach. We did have elementary parents, especially with unvaccinated kids, very concerned about class sizes that were getting up to 24 and 25, and felt we needed to respond to that. So that's why we are. And much more to come on October 1st when I get to do my big show about enrollment. So.
How are we doing at Squadron Line with the bigger classes there?
I mean, I think people have the routines down and all, and they're all older kids, so kids that are able to sort of manage themselves a little more than first and second graders maybe can. So, I mean, I think we're doing okay. But those are our largest classrooms for sure. And just to highlight some of what's on the priorities in my office this year, I think I was hoping for maybe a little less COVID-19 work. That's not proving to be the case yet. And as the liaison for the COVID-19 response, certainly continuing to work on the safety protocols, and that takes on its own individual, in terms of a lot of this support is just being the sounding board and the coach for principals and program leaders who have their own individual questions, whether that's a principal about running programs or, we've had to make some adjustments to things like lunch and recess and how we're doing things even in the first few weeks of school. And for program leaders, that's specialty things like athletics and music and how are we making choices about that. Certainly, the last few weeks has been dominated by the vaccination mandate for all staff. Just so you know that when you take all of our substitute teachers and custodians and nurses and paras, and this is not just about teachers, coaches, it adds up to over 1,000 people that in some way are under this mandate. So the first piece of that is understanding where people stand. Are they vaccinated or not? Collecting all of that information, and then finding out from those who are not vaccinated, are they seeking exemptions through religious or medical reasons, or are they simply choosing not to do it, and then instituting a testing program once a week for those folks. So involved with colleagues in other districts, certainly with attorneys at Shipman and Goodwin. There's a lot of work that Cindy Freelinger and I are putting into this right now, and it all has to go live on September 27th, which is when the mandate kicks in. So certainly a big priority right now. And the response to positive cases, you've probably gotten letters if you're a parent already that we have cases and we have protocols to deal with those cases. The quarantine procedures are different than last year. Fortunately, the quarantines have an opportunity to be a little shorter than they were last year, when most of the quarantines for the majority of the year were 14-day quarantines. Now, the quarantines kind of standard is 10 days, but they can be shortened to 7 days if people test out. If you're a close contact. So I think that's helpful in terms of our goal to keep kids in school. And the rules for vaccinated and non-vaccinated people are very different in terms of how you deal with a quarantine. So when we get a middle or high school case, you're kind of sorting it in a different way now than you were last year, because you're applying different protocols to the vaccinated and unvaccinated students. So and that's taken some getting used to. I will say, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, our principals and assistant principals have gotten pretty good at this work. I'm not they need much less support than they did last year to have us, like Sue and I were going out to the buildings a lot to kind of assist with that process. There's less of that this year, but there's still some consulting that's going on as we get used to the new procedures. Certainly, in terms of other non-COVID priorities, this is the stuff I like to talk about. Our Latimer Lane project will be moving forward into design review very soon. And I'll be partnering with Jason and Mike Luzetti with Tecton, who is finalizing their contract as the architect for this project. And really a lot of work will be happening in the next few months as we get into design specs. And we'll be updating the board frequently about that. So exciting work. Outside of Latimer Lane, I do think we're going to have to talk at some point in the winter about space issues in some of our other elementary schools. I'm going to need to sort of show you the reality of where we are at Squadron Line, which is pretty full at this point. A couple of grade levels have gone to 5 classes in each grade, which is kind of getting back up to the old days of where we were in Squadron. And right now, Squadron's housing the entire preschool program and 3 rooms of Ready, Set, Go. So there's a lot in that building. We may have to move some things out of that building, or, talk about, and I know no one likes to talk about it, but we may have to look at moving some neighborhoods out of Squadron. And that's something that is on the horizon. Don't want to talk too much about it tonight, but I think wanted to just get it on the radar of the board. In terms of the work that I do through the human resource lens, I talked a little bit about the teacher diversity goals that we have. So there continues to be a continued emphasis on equity, gender equity, ethnic equity, trying to really, and really providing that through a professional development lens as well. One of the things in the strategic plan, going back to our 5-year strategic plan, there were goals around a comprehensive staff satisfaction survey. Very much that's something we wanted to do. It's one of those things that took a back seat during COVID. So I want to be able to return to that work over the course of this year. And then in terms of our negotiations team, those of the board members who serve on negotiations. This year, it's a light year, thankfully. It's just one group that we will be negotiating with. That'll happen in the spring with our custodians and maintenance crew. So all the others are under their 3-year contracts at this point. And then we continue to plug away at our safety and security work. If you have not heard, we did add, Jason will show it in a moment, we've been adding the locked vestibules to enter all of our facilities. Tooten Hills was done this summer, so now we are almost all the way there with our proper entryways at all of our schools. A little bit more work to do. And there are some other state procedures that are some new procedures around safety plans you have to develop specifically around athletic events, and safety procedures specific to special education students that may have more need during an emergency. These are things we've always done, but maybe not had written protocols around them, and that's becoming a requirement that we're going to need to be working on. So that's sort of what I put together as priorities out of my office. I'm happy to answer any questions on that before we hand it off. Go ahead, Sharon.
So, a couple things. One is going back to the numbers. When you were talking about being surprised by unenrollments, homeschool.
Yeah.
Was that a factor? Because I mean, I know a lot of folks were, because of the whole, not knowing masking and all that, whether or not, there were folks that were unenrolling and doing homeschool.
So it is a little bit of a factor. It's the one, so I'm going to be presenting that to you on October 1st.
Okay.
And it's actually a funny little piece of data that while I do all the other enrollment, the application to actually homeschool your student goes through the Office of Teaching and Learning. So all those applications go to SUE because you have to apply to the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning to say, I'm going to homeschool my kid. Yeah. So you just collected that data.
I did. It's about 35 students. We have a number of new students. Less than I thought. I thought we'd have more than we do coming from distance learning into the homeschool situation. It actually didn't play out that way. So we just were pulling together those numbers and verifying some parents that we haven't heard from yet, but certainly am in close contact with Neil about that.
Right.
Any early signs of elementary versus high school?
No, they're interestingly and pretty evenly
pretty
distributed.
distributed,
You have a
yeah.
lot of families with multiple kids
Yeah.
that have an elementary, a middle, and or a high school, so you see that play out a little bit as well. But as far as the kids that were not disenrolled that Neil referred to, those were not our homeschool kids.
Okay.
These are kids that actually left the Simsbury School District.
Okay.
And typically, our homeschool list pre-COVID
Yeah.
would have a lot of families who just made that decision
Yeah.
that were, they'd have 4 or 5 kids and they were homeschooling all of them.
Okay.
And they would stay on our lists for long periods of time. And so those names are still there.
Okay.
And then we've sort of added some other, but
That's new.
I'll give you all those numbers on the October 1st report.
Second question that I have, and this is an aside and just wondering, do we have and it may not be available to the community, but do we have an online database of our teachers?
On
Teachers what?
Like our teachers, like
Their names? Or
a
what?
staff directory? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
on the website.
Yep.
They-
By school or
No, like with pictures.
Not with
Not
pictures.
pictures.
Yes, I know the names are there, but that's why I said behind the wall, that we would see.
I mean, we have
they have ID.
a
cards.
database
they
with
do have
ID
ID
badges, but
cards.
not for the
Pictures
public.
on it.
Yeah.
Some schools, they have a database of, you see the pictures, that's why I said behind the wall,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I believe ours just has the name of the teacher, what grade they're in, and then I think you can click on a link to get to their email.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. That's
Because the first time I saw was when they did the ice cream, and I saw all of them,
Oh,
and I was saying, if I hadn't seen, I wouldn't have known who, and then that's what made me ask, do we have a
right.
directory?
So normally, if we had like a big convocation, you would see that on a big screen, and you would be able to see all our new staff as well.
So, something to think about.
all right.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Casey, I'm sorry.
Can
I'm
I
sorry,
ask one more
Jen.
question? But mine's a quick one, I think. I just wanted to reiterate that my understanding is correct because I get asked. The high school and Henry James have put out that request for,
Yeah.
if parents choose to, they can submit their vaccine cards.
Yep.
If a child if I submit my stuff, but my child then is deemed a close contact, but now that my child's been vaccinated, I still will get the call
Yes.
saying that it is. Okay.
So anybody who is a close contact, you're going to get a call. And even, so if
Even
your
if it's-
child is vaccinated and asymptomatic, we will call you and say, however, they're a close contact. And there are still some procedures. They're supposed to test 3 to 5 days after their exposure. So that's one of the recommendations that we give you, that they can continue to come to school, but they should test 3 to 5 days after. And even though masks are required in schools, if you are a close contact, even if you're vaccinated, it is recommended that you wear a mask everywhere you go outside of your house. So that we tell those families, now that kid is expected to mask anywhere indoors that they go for 14 days. That's the recommendation.
Thank you.
So we'll start looking at what we did to our schools this summer. Starting at the high school, our largest project. So we got a new roof, and the metal panels around the perimeter look great, if you haven't seen it.
So much better.
Is it done?
So much better.
The project should be done in about 2 weeks. They've finished the major roof replacement pieces. Now it's just some minor flashing work that's wrapping up. But there's the new roof that you don't often get a chance to see.
We
It's a
don't
beauty,
get a tour of
Jason.
the
So
new roof.
beautiful.
Makes me really
So
excited.
excited.
I'm happy to report that the project is under budget. It's a little beyond schedule just because of the weather that this summer threw at us.
Yeah.
A lot of rainy days, and you can't replace roof on a rainy day, so. The next thing we did up on the roof was we replaced 6 of these very large HVAC units used for heating and cooling in the building. These were roughly in the range of 16 to 17 years old apiece. And when they do start to fail, it involves cranes, and these things are about the size of a small automobile. So staying ahead of the maintenance and doing this prior to problems was the goal there. Also at the high school, on the courtyard-facing classrooms on the 3rd floor, every courtyard-facing room on the 3rd floor now has a 15,000 BTU air conditioner.
Yay.
Finally.
So that's where the sun comes beaming in the afternoon?
Yes. We do intend to do the rooms on the exterior side of that hallway, but that's going to be a next year project. We'll dig back into that. But we did make some progress on the 3rd floor this year.
Have you all been able to enjoy that yet?
Yes.
The teachers had said that this is a preferred method because it gives them control inside of the room specifically without worrying about the rest of the area.
Teachers like control.
That they do. So Henry James, oh, wait a minute, how'd that get in here? That looks better. Our Henry James project, by order of the PBC, Public Building Committee, has been announced as complete. So a year ago, we listed it as substantially complete. It is now considered a complete project. And in the upcoming BOE meeting, you'll be asked to accept that as complete into the minutes. So that's on its way up. So this summer was a lot of little closeout items, and the last piece is actually getting the lawn seeded. So that'll be the final bill when we pay the landscaper.
It looks lovely.
It did come out
So
beautiful.
nice.
Also at Henry James, this exciting little piece, we upgraded the fire panel. It gives us more detailed information when alarms go off. In the past, when there was an issue, it gave more of a direction of where the problem was coming from. Now we get a room number. So just an upgrade that happened over the summer,
You can respond quicker that way if you know where you're going.
figuring out what went wrong after the fact.
Where is that, in the office?
It's actually in the custodial office, just past the main office, yeah. And here is the Tooten Hills vestibule. So it's, once you walk in the main doors, that's the next set of doors. The main office can buzz you in either directly into the main office if they don't recognize you through the camera, or if you are a staff member there, there's a fob swipe so you can bypass that and go straight in.
Is that past that first set of gym doors or before? It's before it. It's hard to tell from that picture. I was just curious. Great.
All right. A lot of little moving parts in there, from architects to engineers to surveillance to glasswork to, there's a lot that goes into one wall that looks like that in the end.
Not as easy as it looks.
Yes.
So just to add to that, the plan will be Terrafill next year as the last remaining building, and we had bypassed doing Latimer Lane until the renovation. So we'll do Terrafill, and then Latimer will be part of the overall project.
And Terrafill is in fact already in the design works now.
Terrific. Bless you.
So at these 3 schools, the high school, Tooten, and Squadron, we did some major upgrades to the lighting. So they have some energy efficient LED lighting in these buildings now, both interior and exterior. We were able to take advantage of some considerable incentives, and also the overall bill after the incentives is paid for through the electric bill. So the work itself reduces that bill, and the remaining work is paid as part of the bill, so the bill doesn't really go up. and that'll be fully paid off in 5 years. At that point, we expect about a $50,000 a year return on efficiency.
That's great. I like efficiency.
All right. And as I mentioned, in the works, the Terrafill security vestibule has already been designed by the architect, and we're working through that. We are planning on replacing Latimer Lane's boilers this summer. We started this summer and are planning on doing it within the next several weeks. We were trying to push this off to the renovation, but they're in such tough shape that we're kind of forced to replace them ahead of that. There is there's a redundant set of boilers. One of them is working fine, so there's no issue for start of school. We'll have 2 redundant ones going in that were worked on with the same engineer and architect that are doing the renovation project. So the building is going to be renovated around the new boilers and integrated into that
I was
plan.
going to say, we'll still be able to use that in the new building.
Yes.
Great.
The Latimer Lane renovation is certainly in the works and taking up a lot of our efforts right now. And also, we'll be seeing the SHS bleachers come into replacement over the course of this year into the summer. So the hope is to begin demolition as early as December, and then in the spring, start the rebuild.
That's great.
A few technology updates. So just 2 items to inform you of. We have distributed 2,475 Chromebooks over this summer. The trick now is that we are a 1-to-1 device district from K through 12. In K1, each student has been assigned their own iPad. In grades 2 through 12, everyone is assigned a Chromebook. So it is certainly a challenge now to get all of this distributed as that works out. So yeah, in the elementary 2 through 6, that's over 1,500 Chromebooks that were put into classrooms over the summer. And then at Henry James, 638 were distributed as the students came in. And then in the Forms and Photo Day at the high school, the 9th graders received their 300 some odd Chromebooks as well. The next technology item is a move to centralized printing. What we're getting away from is inkjet printers and classroom printers and moving towards areas of printing. So say 3, 4, 5 classrooms that are near a particular high volume printer, print to that printer. We're using a product called PaperCut, a software product that allows teachers to send a job to the printers. Then when they're ready to pick them up, they use the same fob that they use to get in the door, swipe at the printer, and their job pops out. So there's no worry about jobs sitting on printers if there's any kind of privacy issues with what gets printed out. This is an extremely common practice in other Connecticut school districts. The age of classroom printers is very much behind us. This will allow us to save on both our ink and toner costs, as well as we'll be maintaining a significantly smaller fleet of printers, so better for the environment as well. Those are the 2 big things I wanted to bring to your attention.
What a change for our teachers.
Yes.
So,
But it's good.
It is.
It's like print anywhere. That's what I call it at work.
so more than just one of those on a floor, there'll be a couple.
Yes. So
You gotta
there's
walk
certain-
down the hall maybe.
Yeah, there's certain natural places where it makes sense, where
Yeah.
classrooms are near faculty rooms or near a library, and where that doesn't naturally afford itself, we set up what we call pods of classrooms, where there's a printer brought into that area that's shared among those.
So if they're on their Chromebook over the weekend and they print something, they send something to the printer, they can come in on Monday and print it out?
Yeah, they can walk by one of the printers, swipe, and it'll pop out.
Does their fob only work on one specific printer?
No.
No, it'll work, in fact, it'll work anywhere in the district, it's just a programming
That's
guide
really
of
cool.
how they get
So
set.
like if Matt has it, I mean, how it works at work is like if I was at your desk
Yep.
and you had a printer
Mhm.
and I'm coming on my way to see you for a meeting, instead of me printing it on my floor, I can wait till I get to your desk and fob and print.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Maggie Seidel, she'll be here at our next Board of Ed meeting, but she's been working closely with principals. The first pilot school is Terriffill, because it's smaller, and really speaking with teachers about, okay, like if you're going to have X printers, where would you like to place them? You know, to Matt's point that this is a change. So it's been a collaborative process, and we are learning from that pilot to do better at the other schools as well. So certainly more to come.
They're all black and white printers?
What's that?
They're all black and white printers?
No, this actually includes color laser jets as well, but less color than we've had historically.
So Jason, when we get the budget, is this something we're gonna be able to analyze in terms of cost differential and everything?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
How
Good.
much paper?
I just acknowledge, I just want to go back to the one-to-one device, and I just don't want us to gloss over that. That is
It's big.
so commendable, and I just think about how many times did we hear, especially last year during COVID, in districts scrambling to get devices out to their students. For us to be one-to-one, I just want to take a second and just say that's phenomenal. I just didn't want us to kind of gloss over that, because that is just huge.
Yeah, I would add to that, in grades K through 2, the devices are kept in the classrooms. They don't go home with the student every night. However, we've set up what we're calling go bags that have the bag and the charger, so if we do run into another situation of quarantine, we're in much better position to be prepared for what we had going on last year.
That's fabulous.
And I would have to say a shout out to Maggie Seidel, who has been heading both the device program as well as the print program.
That's great.
Jason, I had a few questions on that, the one-to-one computer thing. And I don't know, you guys can remind me, maybe it was 2019, I can't remember what year now, but there was an issue, I remember once, where we didn't have enough, like at the high school maybe, there wasn't enough help desk people, and we were trying a new thing. Have we figured out how that works, or?
Yeah, and actually Maggie's headed up the tech department as well now. My role's obviously changed a bit as I spend more time in infrastructure. That scheduling has been revised. We've brought in a new ticketing system as well, which gives us a much deeper look into where the hot spots are coming from.
Very cool.
And I would say we're in a much better place than we were. We've had some personnel changes. We've had some great hires since then as well.
Cool.
Do we have the ability to do loaners if needed?
Yes.
Okay.
And then on a question and a comment, one on the turf, is there any update on the Simsbury High School turf?
Yes, so, you wanna take it? They'll be done in about a week and a half. They're on site.
Oh, wow. Is that,
They're removing all the crumb rubber from the entire field. They're gonna cut a seam down the middle, they pull it back. They're gonna pat down the disrupted underlay, sew it back up, all the infill, groom it, and we'll be back in business.
wow, that was fast.
I was just out there today. It actually looks a lot better already.
Yeah.
Is it?
Great.
Awesome. And then on a flip note, I was out there at the high school during the week before school started, and I won't lie, I was like, oh my gosh, we are never going to have that parking lot ready. And whatever happened to get all of that stuff gone was amazing. So.
Well, the
Great
roof-
job.
The roofing
There
material.
was so much stuff out there. Yes, the roofing.
Both sides.
Yes, I was like, they're never going to
You
make it.
mentioned it to
I'm
me,
like-
and I went by, and I was like, oh, that's a lot.
When we first delivered the roof materials, I said to Carol Mitchell, they do realize they're only replacing one roof.
That was a lot of stuff.
Big job.
Kudos
A
to
lot
you.
of pallets, yep. Yep, well done. A productive summer.
Thank you, Jason.
Hi.
Think we're good?
That's it, all right.
Yeah?
So, we are at our second public audience. Okay.
How do I use this thing?
So you can hold on to it.
Okay,
Just a reminder, your name and your address, please. And
Bobby Hensley, 20 Foxton Road in West Simsbury. I have a few comments, positive and negative. Positive being, I have 3 kids, one of which is in first grade at Central, and so far
She's had an awesome experience this year. She loves it. She loves the fact that they have like a normal-ish recess, which she was in kindergarten, now she's in first grade, so she doesn't have all of her friends in her class now, but she gets to see them all at recess. So she loves that. So I think that's great. A few things that are frustrating. A couple weeks back, and I have no idea if this had any play on anything. I hate social media, but I guess something popped up on a central social media page somewhere about a parent concerned about the cafeteria and kids being close to each other and not having masks on and eating. And I can't even breathe with this thing on. And so, sure enough, when I read it, I shook my head and I said, this is not going to go somewhere well. And like the next day, they pulled back the cafeteria for the kids, and now it's some weird hybrid thing that I'm not sure what it is. I just, as a parent, talking to other parents, I want to express kind of my frustration and disappointment that we can't even let the kids just go into cafeterias and eat without poking at it. Kind of in addition to that, this is like the second year I haven't been in the kids' school at all. And the opportunity where I would have that, which is in the next few weeks for open house, they're only having one parent that's allowed to go. So that's kind of frustrating as well. I mean, I'm a person who went to concerts and I love football. I go to football games and I read stuff like that in emails, and I just kind of shake my head and wonder where this is coming from. So that's really positive and negative, but I just wanted to kind of express some feedback as well.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Just us. Okay, so with that, our next Board of Ed meeting will be Tuesday, September 28th at the high school auditorium.
Correct, yep.
Okay, that's good. Hopefully you all will join us there, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
So move.
I need the motion.
Adjourn.
Thank you. And Lydia, you'll second that, I take it?
Absolutely.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good night, everybody.